Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hyperspace on Dark Matter Radio. I'm your host, Miss Solaris Blue Raven. I want to thank everyone for tuning in this evening, and a special thank you to webmaster and producer Keith Rowland. And my special guest this evening is Jim Nichols. Since 1980, noted artist and investigator, lecturer Jim Nichols has produced an extraordinary body of UFO illustrations that has been published internationally in magazines, articles, books, and the internet. His art was routinely featured on the History Channel's UFO Hunters. As well, in his art book, Case Files Revealed, he shares the untold stories behind 40 of his most dramatic UFO illustrations based on actual accounts. His book is available through his website, www.jimnicholsufo.net. Jim is also winner of 2 EBE-Awards at 2010's International UFO Conference in Laughlin, Nevada, for his video documentary about Nazi saucers entitled The Aldebaran Mystery, which is also available now as a DVD from UFOTV Productions. In addition, 13 of Jim's UFO-related video essays are now presented by UFOTV on YouTube, which can be accessed from his website. And please welcome Jim to the show this evening. Jim, how are you doing?
Doing very good. How are you, Solaris?
Doing fine. Thanks for being on the show tonight. Appreciate it.
My audio's still good?
Yes, it is. You sound great.
Excellent. Okay.
All right. Knock wood, right?
And I'm not breathing too heavy.
No, you sound fine.
Hey, I'm happy I'm breathing at all. Give me a break.
That's right.
But anyway, it's nice to be back. I always enjoyed getting to chat with you. So what did you want to talk about today?
Oh, my gosh. I have so many things here. Let me see. Where do we start? Where do we begin and where do we end? It's infinite, right?
I gotta mention about those 13 videos that are on UFO TV YouTube. Mm-hmm. We kind of got into a big snafu with that back in December because of some copyright conflicts. So I don't have as many as 13 anymore. But I have, since December, I have refurbished 8 of my original videos that were on UFO TV YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
And I cleaned up all the copyrighted music and film clips and so forth, just to make YouTube happy. Mm-hmm. So we are in the process of putting those back up. And you did mention the Aldebaran Mystery, mm-hmm. and we have a refurbished version of that up on UFO TV. Awesome. I think it's the Aldebaran Mystery Volume 2 or Part 2 or something.
Wonderful.
But I have that, and I also have Nibiru 3. Nibiru 3, The Return of the Gods, is one of my newest video productions, which just went up on UFO TV YouTube. Excellent. And the other one is, what is the other one? Oh, the Archons. Mm-hmm. Yes, the Archons. Ancient Aliens, the Archons, is one of my other new videos that is up on UFO TV YouTube. And you just go to their home site, UFO TV YouTube, and you'll see those titles pop up on their homepage.
Excellent. Yes, and those are very good videos, by the way. I'm sure they're even better now. Yeah, I was very impressed with that.
Thank you.
You did a great job.
Well, I went back and more than just taking out the questionable material that YouTube wasn't happy with, I just refurbished the whole thing so they look fresher, and there's actually more additional material in these new videos that wasn't in the originals. So I think it was kind of a blessing in disguise to go back and repair those.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. With anything, actually, I go back and look at some of my books nowadays, and I want to rewrite them and re-edit them again. Isn't that funny?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Well, it's a good sign. I said we're growing. We know more, and our skills at least my video skills have improved somewhat. Mm-hmm. So it's like I go back and see the old videos, and I can't be content with them anymore. So I think it was George Lucas that said when he went back and refurbished his Star Wars movies, he said that actually a film is never finished; it's just abandoned.
That's interesting.
And I think he's right. Now that I've been involved with so many of my own video projects, he's right. He says you just get to a point where this is all I can do with it for right now. Mm-hmm. But I could come back, in a year, 2 years, and say, "Oh my God, I can redo this and make it way better." So that's what you run into.
Oh, that's very true. One of his first, wasn't it THX 1138? I think it was his very first film.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, that was really good back then.
Yeah, that was. very insightful, and you could see
it's almost creepy,
see what George Lucas was thinking about.
Yeah, well, when you look at what's happening today, it's almost eerie on so many different levels. But yeah, there's so much to discuss with you tonight, and I know you want to address some of the Billy Meier material a little bit, so I'll let you start rolling with that if you like.
Well, that's one of the videos I just completely refurbished and added new material to it, and I don't know that that's gone up on YouTube yet. But anyway, that we were, I think we were in a discussion, you and I, or you were on a show with Mark Snyder where you asked me, or somebody asked me what I thought about the Billy Meier contact and whether it was real or not, and I kind of said, well, I didn't know, and I just kind of left it go at that, and that's not true. It's not, that is not accurate. I was, the reason I got into the UFO research field to begin with is because I got to be friends with the Colonel Wendell Stevens. At the time, he was investigating the Billy Meier contact in Switzerland in 1980. I mean, he was right in the midst of it. And I was so impressed by his research and by the material that he was, putting together about this case that I was, it just got me totally interested in the UFO field and doing UFO art and so forth or whatever. But anyway, over the years, the original investigation has kind of been overlooked or kind of shunted off to the side, and now we have Michael Horn and the FIGU and that have just kind of monopolized this whole case, and they really don't give much credit to the original investigation, and consequently there seems to be a lot more debunkers out there who totally dismiss the Meier contact. And yes, I agree. There's a lot of material in the Meier case that is very controversial. And there's the true believers, and then there's the people that think the whole thing's a total fraud. But and I can't speak for Billy Meier, and this is not, I'm not defending Billy Meier at all in this. He has his truth, and that's fine. But I do tend to defend the efforts of Wendell Stevens and the original investigating team. And it's very interesting because Wendell was a maverick. Wendell didn't work for MUFON. He didn't work for APRO. He was just definitely his own person. And because of that, he drew a lot of detractors within the UFO community. And they were quick to throw rocks at him and his investigation. But all things considered, it's probably one of the finest and one of the best UFO investigations that was ever done. And what they determined that, to their satisfaction, with the photographs that they tested, that the photographs showed a large object at distance from the camera. And as far as the metal samples, they took them to IBM, and IBM said these metal samples show cold fusion metal combination that was not known to earthly science at that time. And the audio recordings, the sound recordings of the beam ships could not be duplicated with the technology of that era. And they were sounds unknown to any. They have like the researchers had like a sound bank of every sound that there is on this planet, and that the sounds that Billy recorded were unlike anything that they could be duplicated. So anyway, Wendell and his team proved to their satisfaction that at least the evidence that they studied seemed to verify that whatever it was a legitimate case, and they proved at least that the physical evidence was proved to their satisfaction that, yeah, Meyer, at least portion of what Meyer was saying was true.
At least when it came down to like the scientific aspects of it. And what year was this again?
Excuse me?
What year was this?
This is between 1975 and 1980.
Okay.
And Wendell and his team made several trips to Switzerland and met with Meyer, met with the other 30 eyewitnesses, and really tested it out to their satisfaction that at least a portion of what Billy Meyer was talking about was true. And so that's kind of where I hang my hat. That whether or not the UFOs or the beam ships were from the Pleiades, nobody can prove that. It's totally subjective. But at least the metal samples, the sound recordings, and at least some of the photographs did test authentic. Right. So I just wanted to clarify that.
I'm glad you did. And also, you can't forget that they were working on covert technology and man-made UFOs right before the war. I mean, so we know that the Nazi Bell, for example, and other things like that. So they literally were working on that type of technology. So it's highly possible he might have been pulled into a covert black space program of some kind. Now, I don't know what your impression is of that.
Well, that's the other wild card in all this. Allegedly, he claims he talked to a lady, a beautiful blonde lady with long blonde hair, who spoke perfect Austrian German, and she was extremely knowledgeable about the Nazi saucer projects from World War II. So you can say, oh well, was she really from the Pleiades? Or is she from New Berlin down in the Antarctic? And so that's the wild card in all this. But Billy, even as a child, Billy said that he saw during the war, during World War II, that he's living in Switzerland near Zurich, and that they saw circular flying craft regularly during the war. And his father always told him, says, "Oh, those are German flying saucers. Those are German airships." And so Billy just kind of took it at that. But it was then later on he claims to have started having ongoing contacts with beings from the Pleiades. So there's interesting conjecture, but I knew Wendell Stevens, and I also knew Jim Dilatoso. I don't know if you know him.
I'm familiar with him, yeah.
Jim Dilatoso was involved in computer analysis of the photographs. In fact, he developed a protocol by studying the Meyer photographs. He developed a protocol which is now used with in forensic police analysis around the country of photographs. So, and Jim the pictures he tested, he was satisfied that he could tell the difference between what was a real object, a large object photographed at distance from the camera, or whether it was a paste up or models. He developed a protocol where you could tell the difference, easily tell the difference. And so two years ago, Jim Dilatoso was kind enough to speak to my Quantum Horizons meetup group here in Tucson, and he he went into great detail about a lot of the background of the Billy Meyer investigation that Wendell was involved with, and to his satisfaction, Billy Meyer was actually having contact with somebody from out of the ordinary, and whether there's Pleiadian or not, they don't know.
It's fascinating.
But Billy was actually having a contact.
Right. Well, I don't discount he was in communication with something. My impression is that it's part of the Black Space program. That's just my own impression, especially after where I've been with the covert technology. I know what they're capable of doing. And, when he's encountering these quote-unquote Pleiadians, I mean, like you said, they look like us. Yeah, well, that's okay. But there's so much that kind of reveals that there's something behind the scenes insofar as it not being truly an off-world experience. So I find it fascinating nonetheless. I think he might have been used as one of the early test pilots for their experimentation. And that to me is, and plus he's also written some really prophetic information. I mean, whether he's channeled it or received it telepathically. I mean, a lot of what he's been communicating from the past has actually come to fruition. So that's another thing you need to look at.
Right. Well, what it came down to, and they kind of they crossed the line. That with UFO photographs and so forth, that was no big deal. Mm-hmm. But when they were working with the metal samples, Jim Dilatoso said they didn't just give Billy just a handful of little metal chunks. They said they gave him 40 pounds of metal. Mm. And and when he asked them, this is a man with a 6th grade education, he asked his quote unquote Pleiadian friends if they would explain to him the how that metal was processed. And so they gave him a detailed explanation of how that metal was processed. Well, that's where the whole investigation got in trouble. Mm-hmm. Because the intelligence agencies were very, very interested in this, and this is what made the whole case extremely dangerous for the investigators, because they realized that they had their hands on something that the powers that be wanted to get hold of desperately. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And so the whole thing spun off in a different direction from that point. Right. But Wendell and Jim Dilatoso and the gang, they tell stories of being chased, across Italy, across Europe by the CIA, and switching trains to try to dodge the people that were following them when they were in Europe doing this investigation. So there's way more to it than. There's way more to it than the public ever gets to hear about.
Right, and that's really important information, in my opinion. That's something that needs to, it actually gives it more credibility on so many different levels. But
absolutely.
It's definitely something that people need to be aware of, because a lot of it gets airbrushed, as you know. And the information, by the time it gets from one person to like the 7th down the row, it's not even the same conversation.
No.
So, and we've seen that before. So I think documentation is really big, and I'm glad that you've been able to access more data on that. I find it very, very interesting.
Well, it's an amazing story. It's an amazing case, and it's kind of fading into the legend, in the legendary fog here. And we don't hear stories about Pleiadians visiting people anymore. And so it's like this is just a unique, kind of isolated UFO story that. That it just has so many questions, unanswered questions, mm-hmm. that are still hanging with this. So
mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, you could really go to so many different levels with it, without a doubt. And Billy's pretty quiet these days, isn't he?
Yeah, and according to and this is, you could always say, well, there's so many interesting parallels with the Billy Meyer story and the George Adamski story. But George Adamski was traveling internationally on a CIA passport, speaking about his UFO experiences all over the world, where Billy has stayed isolated on his farm the whole time. And the only one that goes out and talks about it is Michael Horn.
Yep. He's the front man.
And he's like the front man. He's like the spokesman for this whole story. And independent investigators can't access it.
Mm-hmm. See, that's
so it's like, well, and over the years I've seen how the UFO community, quote unquote, like MUFON or those people, totally reject the Meyer case as a complete fraud, and they won't even, in fact, one of the MUFON directors from Phoenix made the public statement. He says, I don't have to investigate the Billy Meyer contact. I can just look at those pictures and know they're fake. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, well, how unprofessional can you be? Mm-hmm. That is totally unprofessional.
What year was this?
You didn't go to Switzerland. You didn't talk to Billy Meyer. You didn't talk to any of the eyewitnesses. You didn't make one iota of effort to to study the photographs, electronically or anything, but you're going to make a pronouncement like that in the public. And so it's like no, there's an agenda here. There's a party line agenda that mainstream UFO tends to stick to, and that their agenda is that the Meyer case is a hoax, and let it go at that.
That's really interesting. And so far, just why they would even overlook that case in particular is really strange to me on so many different levels, because it is one of the original cases,
Right. So if it was a CIA-backed case, I would think it would get much higher profile, like in with MUFON or with the big high-end UFO conferences around the country, but it doesn't.
Yeah, that's very
interesting.
So
anyway, that's just for what it's worth.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that information. And also, I wanted to talk just a little bit about New Berlin. What exactly, for our listeners, what is New Berlin? And do you think it is an actual place?
Where did you hear about? Tell us where you heard about.
Well, I've heard it from you, my friend.
Before you put me out on a limb.
Oh, no, I'm not. If you don't want to talk about that, that's fine. I mean, honestly, just threw it out there.
Okay, well.
What's your impression? Let's put it that way.
We have to blame this on Mark Snyder.
Okay, we'll blame it on Mark.
Let's blame it on Mark. Mark sent me a link to a video on YouTube that I didn't even know existed. And I get people send me links all the time and say, "Oh yeah, I'll look at this when I get around to it." So I thought, just to be nice to Mark, I'll watch this video, or at least a few minutes of it. And I clicked on that, and I about dropped my jaw. I say, "Oh my God!" It's called "Secrets of the Inner Earth," and it's about a 20-year-old video documentary all about the Hollow Earth and the Admiral Byrd's trek to the Antarctic in 1947, and the Nazis, and it's just an incredible video. And in it, they make the assertion that the Germans lost the war in Germany. They lost the war in Europe, but they won the war in the Antarctic, and that there's a huge, huge city under the ice in the Antarctic called New Berlin. And according to the conjecture, there's at least 20 million Germans that live there. And, at the first blush, that sounds like the wildest tabloid nonsense, right? But you start to do some research into the Antarctic, the interest of the secret societies around the world have had about the Antarctic, and the actual geological structure of the Antarctic itself. It's not just like a solid ice sheet. There are huge, huge caverns in the Antarctic that could accommodate a city, and may even be large enough to accommodate a country. So, that's one aspect of this research. And then the other thing is that the Earth is hollow, and there's ascended masters, ascended very high civilization that flourished for centuries under the Antarctic or under the Earth. And you wonder, so, well, is there something to all this?
Right.
So, that's New Berlin. If you want to know what New Berlin is, that's it. It's a huge city underneath the Antarctic.
And it's well worth looking at that video. I found it very interesting myself. I was really intrigued with the information, and a lot of it rang true. And also with the living underground. I mean, we've heard ancient tales of certain civilizations going underground, and whether they phase shift into another reality, another dimensional space, which starts underground, and then there's a time gate or something like that. I mean, it can take on so many parallels. But I don't discount any of that, quite honestly. I think that anything is possible, especially on this planet. I mean, we really haven't dove into that much. I mean, there are quote-unquote secret societies that have archived certain data, but when it comes down to it, I mean, there's a lot here that exists on another vibrational level that we really haven't accessed, in my opinion. So I think there's a lot there.
Well, there is, and when you stop and look a little bit deeper into the history of Admiral Byrd, Richard E. Byrd, he had a fascination with both the North Pole and the South Pole throughout his life. And in 1928, 1929, he flew expeditions both over the North and South Pole. And you just assume, well, that was financed by the Navy. Oh, no, it was not financed by the Navy. It was financed by the Rockefellers. It was only his Operation High Jump in 1947 that was allegedly looking for Nazis in the South Pole that was actually financed by the Navy. But Admiral Byrd was a high-ranking Freemason, and you start to ask the question: well, as a Freemason, did he have access to knowledge or access to information about the history of the Antarctic that we here in the mainstream don't know about? So we see, so you see this guy in a parka and with the sled dogs chasing around in the ice, and you think, well, that's kind of eccentric. But if he's part of a team that has gained access to information that says, well, the Antarctic was actually, which is a continent, that the Antarctic is actually the remnant of Atlantis, of a lost civilization that the secret societies know all about, then you say, well, there's more to this story than first meets the eye.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah. So
that's a good point to make. When you think about it, also, isn't there still a no-fly zone over is it the North Pole?
I've heard that. I
know there used to be. I'm not sure if they still do that or not.
Well, I've heard there's a no-fly zone over both poles. And I'm not sure. That is so conjectural, and it's so hard to verify that I don't know. What I would really like to see is somebody who's a geologist, or somebody who has a very keen understanding of torsion physics, as well as planetary geology, who could work up on a computer a model of an animated model of just what are the dynamics of the formation of a planet, both physically, geologically, and electromagnetically. And in the torsion spin, and as the planet spins, and the faster it spins, does it actually create a hollow center? And I think somebody who is, reasonably skilled with his understanding of torsion physics and geology and so forth could work this up in a computer model that would show whether or not a planet sphere does become hollow inside, rather than just a big, molten blob of lava or magma, at the center, which we've always assume, according to mainstream physics, that's how planets work.
Right. Well, that's the three-dimensional aspect of it. But then you look beyond all that with multidimensional sight, so to speak. Then you go beyond and look at the different, what shall I say, the grid. And start really looking at the grid. So you and I both know that's what the ancient mystery schools taught was accessing that. So I'm sure. Yes. So I'm sure they've done it somewhere out there. Somebody has accessed that and has probably done some sort of a computer program designed to show that information. Wouldn't that be great, huh?
Sure. Well, that's just the ancients understood that the whole universe is just a sea of energy, and that the spin that you see, like in a galaxy, or in a tornado, or in a hurricane, or just in the spin of an atom, that this is the fundamental motion, the fundamental universal motion of the medium that we're in. And so somebody out there must have a much keener understanding of the dynamics of that. And what I'm talking about, you can see in what's Foster Gamble's documentary?
Oh, I forgot the name of it, but I know what you're talking about. Oh.
Yeah, Thrive.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
It's in Thrive.
Mm-hmm.
The opening sequence in Thrive explains torsion physics, and they show you how a toroid field is created and how it works, and the energy dynamics of a toroid field. Well, planet Earth just happens to be a toroid field. And so the whole energy dynamics of that, I know is fascinating to Foster Gamble. Well, maybe he knows. Maybe he's done some research into this that would reveal what really goes on in the center of the Earth.
Well, it's definitely intriguing, without a doubt. But
right.
I think people are getting more perspective insofar as what's really going on. And you talk about the vortexes, and with the North Pole. I mean, for whatever reason, I keep thinking clockwise. North Pole clockwise, South Pole counterclockwise, anti-gravity for South. I don't know why. Now, maybe that's just my way of looking at energy. But there's something very unique about it, and to me it seems that they're staking those areas for a reason. Let's put it that way. They're interested in those areas for a reason, without a doubt.
Right. Well, they're also saying that even the sun, the center of our solar system, we've been taught that it's just a ball of burning hydrogen. It's no big deal, but that science, I think, has recently discovered that the sun is getting energy from someplace else rather than within, its own sphere.
Right.
So is there like at the very center of the sun, is that a wormhole that's drawing in energy from another dimension?
I could see that. And actually, there is a lot of talk of certain species going through the sun and actually being able to navigate through the sun, and also a connection to the galactic center through that too.
Right.
So there's a lot that is esoteric and almost mystery school oriented, I believe, on so many different levels. But when you think about it, that's another thing. This planet is a living consciousness, and we forget that sometimes, that this planet is alive. So it takes on a whole different formula.
It's not that I think the powers that be would just assume we didn't know that. But that this information is coming out more and more. And but yeah. I encourage your listeners to get a hold of Thrive, the documentary Thrive by Foster Gamble. You can probably get the DVD, or you can probably access it, on YouTube.
Yeah, that was very good. I saw that.
But that clearly illustrates the dynamics of the torsion physics world that we live in, and it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Oh, absolutely.
And
without a doubt.
But getting back to the Germans, the other thing that is very interesting, the German secret societies were financed by the Third Reich. So you have secret societies that are financed to specifically look for these esoteric teachings and the esoteric history of the human race. And one of the things that they encountered was a map of the Antarctic that was, I think it was discovered back by a Portuguese navigator back during the 1500s, and the map was ancient when he got it, but it shows a detailed physical map of the Antarctic continent. And this is the Antarctic beneath the ice cap. So at one point, the Antarctic was mappable as a continent before there was any ice on it at all. And somehow this map fell into the hands of the Germans. So they were very, very fascinated and very determined to discover the rest of the secrets about the Antarctic. And there was a program. There was a publicly announced program, and I think it was 1943, in the middle of the war, that the Germans were interested in colonizing the Antarctic. So this was no big secret. This is what they wanted to do, and they were very open about it. And so it begs the question: did they successfully do that?
Mm-hmm. Another question is, did they access another Stargate or time gate where they were able to actually kind of bilocate to another planet through the Stargates from that location or something too?
All of the above.
Mm-hmm.
We're dealing with physics and understanding the universal cosmology that is so far beyond mainstream that if the Germans did access that there's no, you can leave it up to your imagination where they went from here.
Well, and you also follow the money, but you take a good look at the Vatican too, and the ancient archives that are there, and
Sure.
you know the Nazis were connected in with that also, so they had access to those archives for research and investigation. That just takes on another parallel on its own.
Well, one of the things that was mentioned in that documentary, that video that I was talking about, the Inner Earth, mm-hmm. is that we assume that the Nazis are still wicked and evil, and they want to take over the world, and blah blah blah. And the researcher that they interview in that, he says no. He says they really, the Germans that are in the Antarctic actually achieved what they wanted to achieve, but couldn't achieve in Europe, in that they created their own independent nation that was not bordered by hostile French or hostile Russians or hostile British nations. It's like they created a nation that wasn't constantly being threatened into being carved up by the other nations of Europe. Mm-hmm. And this is what Hitler wanted to begin with. He wanted to create Lebensraum, living room. He wanted a continent that would give the German people living room, mm-hmm. room to live and just be themselves. And the investigator that they interviewed said that's what they achieved. And so they said that, well, they're perfectly content down there. They have free energy. They've dropped off the grid. They have their own independent energy sources, and it's like they don't need the rest of the world anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's like the idea that they're plotting to take over the planet down there is like, no, it doesn't wash. One of the things, Hitler was always so envious of the United States because we had the living room that the German people wanted. Mm-hmm. They wanted to have a continent to themselves, which is what what we Americans had, and just took for granted. Isn't it? And took for granted. Yeah. We're bordered by Pacific and Atlantic Ocean, mm-hmm. and we don't have to worry about other countries invading us, constantly.
That's really interesting.
So if the Germans, were able to capitalize on this free energy torsion physics to create a breakaway civilization for themselves and just go off and say, leave us alone. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's in fact what they achieved.
Well, that's highly possible. And of course, I don't have a problem with breaking away either and living off the grid. And that sounds kind of nice, actually. When you think about it, with free energy and a cleaner world, that'd be great, wouldn't it? I don't see anything wrong with that. But yeah, so it's a fascinating concept, and you never know. I mean, I don't discount it. I mean, Admiral Byrd was at war with something. Okay. So what was it?
There it is. What, and to this day, what actually happened down there is still classified.
That's ridiculous.
It's totally classified. Mm-hmm. And then Byrd went down there in 1947, and then again in 1957, they went back again with the International Geophysical Year and Operation Deep Freeze, where they intended to detonate some atomic bombs over the Antarctic. So it's like, mm-hmm. and whether they were successful at that, I don't know. Mm. But it was then just a year later, Byrd died under questionable circumstances.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's part of history.
I think our government has been very, very interested in the Antarctic for the same reasons the Germans were. Mm-hmm. And in secret societies, the Freemasons, the Illuminati, whatever, they have a keen understanding of ancient Atlantis. Mm-hmm. And the ancient high civilizations that once flourished on this planet. And the Antarctic may have been a very key component to that.
Right.
which would make it equally desirable to the Freemasons in the United States as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all about enlightenment, if you ask me. I mean, unfortunately, I think there's been an abuse and misuse of technology and power, as we all know. But I'd like to see the more enlightened side to mankind come forth without a doubt. But yeah, it seems that it's all about control and manipulation on so many different levels.
Yeah, control and power, control and power. It's the old story.
Yeah. So you have to ask yourself why were some able to break away, and others are still trapped in that false matrix. That's just another scenario altogether.
Well, it's very interesting. The other thing, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but I know you've studied the Ascended Masters and the Saint Germain and that kind of stuff. One of the things that always struck me about all the portraits that I've seen, illustration portraits that I've seen of so-called Ascended Masters, the one thing that is so striking about those portraits is the size of their eyes. Their eyes are much larger than normal.
Good point.
And I thought, well, if they are inhabitants of the inner earth, it would be natural for their eyes to grow larger to accommodate more light. If they're not surface dwellers, like, maybe our eyes have shrunk because we're surface dwellers, that to tolerate the amount of sunlight that we have to tolerate on the surface, our eyes have shrunk. And think about it. And that if you're an inner earth inhabitant, or living in Shambhala or wherever, that maybe their eyes do grow larger. Because if you look at those portraits of Saint Germain or whatever, they look perfectly normal except their eyes are oversized.
Yeah, they are.
I said, well, is this just an eccentricity of the artist, or are their eyes actually larger? And getting back to Billy Meyer, he said that Semyazi, this girl that he claimed came from the Pleiades, he said her skin was extremely pale, almost colorless, white. And I'm thinking, well, okay, well, maybe that's natural for the Pleiadians. But then on the other hand, well, what if she's a German from the inner earth who doesn't get out and get much sun? Like, well, is that another odd, clue that maybe something is going on in the inner earth?
That's very, very interesting. Well, I wouldn't discount it. Like I said, I don't discount the fact that we have breakaway societies, and it's highly possible that they are over there in Antarctica. I mean, I know there are different species on this planet now, and we've talked, before about the vibrational frequencies, and that some people may not see certain things due to the frequency it's vibrating on. So that's another thing altogether. I mean, we're dealing with a holographic planet to some degree, so you have to kind of look at it like that. Right. It's really, really fascinating when you start diving into all these different corridors and taking a good glimpse, in these areas. But boy, I think some good things need to change here in this country. I'd like to see some positive things happen here. It seems like it's getting more and more oppressed. It almost reminds me of a precursor to World War II. And I've said that before, but that's the energetic I keep getting from here. So
right.
Not sure why. Don't really care for it. So hopefully that will, shift and change on a more positive level. Well, what's your take about the moon? I mean, we've talked about the hollow Earth. What about the moon being hollow?
Well, I've heard the same thing. The same thing. Yeah. That the moon is like the Death Star. It's a wanderer. Then there's I confess I haven't really dug into that in great depth, but I know in one of Jim Marr's books about extraterrestrials and so forth, he spends a lot of time talking about the moon anomalies, and that there's ancient historical records that suggest there was a time when the moon wasn't even here. That the moon kind of joined up with us eons ago as a wanderer or as a space station. And There's also the discussion that the moon's mass doesn't seem quite right. It's as though it were hollow.
Mm-hmm.
That there should be more mass to the moon than there is.
Right. That's quite interesting. Well, if they've been mining it, that would explain a little bit here and there. But, I look at it also as something that's under intelligent control, and that's something that could have been, that could have actually navigated here under intelligent control. I mean, that's my take. And then I've also heard theories that some people said it's come from our Earth. It came from the ocean. So I don't really resonate with that a whole lot, but I do find it to be very intriguing.
I've heard that theory, but somehow that doesn't sound quite right to me. No.
Yeah. Without a doubt, but there's definitely some things there, of course. Once again, you're dealing with breakaway societies, and what exactly is there, and what kind of architecture is there?
Well, the other thing is that is planet Earth actually the territorial property of somebody else from someplace else,
right?
Other star systems, and maybe the moon was brought here as establish a base, just to keep an eye on the Earthlings here.
It's almost like
as a management facility.
Ugh, that's kind of nasty. Well, you think about it, the landlords. Yeah, who are the landlords?
Right.
And I'm sure they're coming back.
Meet the Anunnaki. Well, that's kind of what I talk about in that my video Nibiru 3, Return of the Gods, because that really addresses that kind of forthright. There's so much conjecture and there's so much strange commentary coming out of the Vatican these days that suggests that the Vatican knows something that we don't know. That they're starting to say, yeah, the ETs are coming and they will likely be our saviors. And so for high-placed Vatican authorities to make proclamations like that is utterly astounding.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's like.
And then again, Jim, consider the source.
What do they know that we don't know?
I hate to say it, but yeah, you have to consider the source too. But sure, they have access and they're watching the skies. But at the same time, you and I both know that they've been doing genetic modification and enhancement insofar as mind-controlled people and experimentation underground bases and things like that, where they're altering the DNA. And I'm thinking they're probably creating a certain race or species which could appear as hybrids or extraterrestrials, and they might try to pass them off as an extraterrestrial race to brainwash the masses.
And we wouldn't know the difference, would we?
Well, I would, but I don't think most people would. But seriously, if something's being engineered and it's an underground black project, and then it comes forward and they try to pass it off as an extraterrestrial, kind of like what we were talking about with Billy Meyer case with the quote-unquote Pleiadian female who might have just been an enhanced and modified regular humanoid girl who was engineered, and that's highly possible.
Yeah, anything goes. Yeah. That's everything's a wild card, and it's fun to speculate on it. But the flip side on the Vatican is like the Vatican would have access to the same information that the secret societies know. So what the secret societies know, the Vatican knows. Right. And it's the Jesuits, the Jesuit astronomers within the Vatican who are making these pronouncements. So. Okay, maybe there is some hybridization going on to create false aliens. But the flip side is that the Vatican and the secret societies may be proxies for an off-planet intelligence that's been running the show here since day one. So you have to factor that one in also. Right.
Yeah, it's all very interesting. Well, the track record for the quote-unquote organized without bashing religion in any form, the track record for that sort of thing is usually confiscation of archives and data and persecuting those who were enlightened.
Exactly.
So we kind of have to look at that and really kind of put on a special lens when we're observing what they have to say, in my opinion. You can't just kind of take it all as truth because there's deception. And you have to ask, what is the agenda behind the scenes? What are they all trying to achieve by all this deception and editing information and censoring data? And then when they feel guided, they decide to unload some information, which most of it is watered down to begin with. And those of us who have done the research, like you and I, or mystical scientists, usually can see through these veils, and we can pierce that because, especially coming from my background, I mean, I can scan things really well, but I would say for most people, they probably don't. But there's definitely some kind of an agenda, without a doubt, happening.
Well, at the end of the day, knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
And what you look at, like the Jesuits, the secret societies, the Illuminati, the Freemasons, the Thule Society, the Vril Society, the SS, what they have systematically done is vacuumed all this secret information, the secret history of the world, into their own archives. So it's like you have a small handful of people who have the real knowledge, the real history of this planet,
Mm-hmm.
and they deliberately keep that from the rest of us, and that gives them the power.
Right, but
You
the
have
question.
the knowledge, you have the power.
Correct.
So then you can like suddenly the Vatican is starting to leak out information about, oh yeah, there's aliens out there, and if they may well be more spiritually advanced than we are, and if they are, then we're going to have to, and if we have contact with them, then we're going to have to completely revamp our spiritual understanding so we can interact better with the extraterrestrials.
Mm-hmm.
So I say, well, it's the old power trick. It's like Jehovah comes down from the sky, and you have to worship the gods that come down from the sky and do what they tell you. If you're not, you're a heretic and subject to rather nasty punishment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can see that this whole dynamic of control over the human population is just, recycling itself.
Right. The one thing that comes to mind, Jim, is I don't believe they do have all the answers, even with the quote-unquote information that they have not released. To me, they can have knowledge, but they don't have the wisdom or the cellular access, what I call cellular memory, to really ascend with the information. Now, those of us who I call star beings or star seeds, we automatically have archives inside our cells and our atoms, and we can access that. So when we see information, it triggers us into remembering. And that's old soul activity, that's consciousness in motion. I don't see that happening with these organizations at all. I think that the reason that they have done so much covert assessment on people and tagging and tracking and my labs is because they want the abilities of those of us who have a specific ability or gift, and they want to track that and control it and try to manipulate it through consciousness, of course, because that's the key to our evolution. If they can control consciousness, then they've got the game won.
Right. So, there might be surprises for everybody before it's all over.
Mm-hmm. It's a jack in the box, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
It's interesting. Well, being as perceptive as you are, what do you see, we've made a lot of leaps and bounds in the past 20 years, without a doubt. I mean, when you look at our technology here in the United States, and this is what I would consider a fairly young country, and we know most of that is because of what happened in World War II and how we acquired certain scientists over here. But really, when you think about it, we've made some really big breakthroughs, and then that doesn't even calculate we can't even calculate the black space programs as well. So what do you see down the road, maybe 6 to 10 years from now in America?
Wow.
Anything good?
Well, I hope for the best, but plan for the worst.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up since World War II. I'm a baby boomer, so I've grown up really conditioned to welcome technology with open arms. And, I was a kid who grew up with television. Television was brand new when I was a kid. And we loved television. We loved the movies. We loved the rockets. We loved all this technology. We just Americans have a fetish for technology.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm getting to the point where it's like, was that in and of itself a brainwashing?
Mm.
Because what I see with computer technology, with artificial intelligence, is that we're starting to go overboard. It's one thing to make technology to improve your life. It's like I like hot and cold running water. I like flush toilets. I like dishwashers. I like refrigerators. I like all these little convenience things, but I don't want to become a refrigerator. I don't want to become a machine. I don't want to become a computer. And that's the insidious thing that's taking over.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't watch commercial television, but I was at the theater the other day, and I saw this commercial for this new TV series where this guy has a microchip implanted in his brain, and it makes him a Superman. So it's like, well,
it doesn't.
We're
Trust me.
Well, this is what they're selling.
Right.
This is the way they sell it.
Yeah.
That this will make you a Superman. We just saw Elysium with Matt Damon, where he was half human, half cyborg.
Right.
Right. And that was cool. And now there's a new movie coming out with Tom Cruise. Same thing. He's a super warrior who's half man, half cyborg. He's a killing machine. And it's like the technology. Where technology is a benefit to humanity is blurring to where the technology is now going to take over humanity. And we talked about this the other day, that is there an insidious takeover of this planet by an inorganic life form, an inorganic life form that exists within the computer chips that we have proliferated everywhere, right? Is there an inorganic sentience that is quietly taking over all of the biological, organic life on this planet? And you hear somebody like Ray Kurzweil, the famous Ray Kurzweil, who as we speak is filling the skies with chemtrails and nanoparticles that will take you over from the inside out. So at the end of the day, we will all be assimilated into what Ray Kurzweil calls his machine intelligence of this planet, and he wants to spread this nanotechnology all across the universe.
Well, he's in for a big surprise because the universe works differently.
Well, it's like,
has anybody told him?
Did you ask the universe if it wanted to be nanotech? As well, you might ask him first, just out of courtessy.
Right.
But he sees the whole universe as dead, and it's like you have to infuse it with nanotechnology for it to come alive.
Oh no!
So it's like, this is this insidious of technology that I never dreamed we would come to this.
My goodness. Well,
but in retrospect, I can see, we've been groomed for this since day one.
Right. Well, we've been calibrated for technology without a doubt. And you know my background. You know what I've been exposed to.
Sure.
And I understand how technology works. I mean, I've been a test pilot for this synthetic telepathy. I understand the mechanics behind it. And that's what's so funny when they glamorize it in Hollywood and they say, it's going to be to enhance this. No, it's about control, manipulation, brainwashing, erasing memories, inserting memories, and just destroying you, literally. Right. So I could go on about that. But and we're going to take a break in just a second, Jim, and then we'll get back and discuss more about this. I think it's an excellent question you bring forth, and let's go ahead and have a break here real quick.
Okay.
Welcome back, everybody, to Hyperspace on Dark Matter Radio. I'm Solaris Blue Raven. I'm here with my special guest, Jim Nichols. And Jim, we were talking about insidious agendas. Jim, you there? Are you muted? Hang on. Jim, where'd you go?
I'm here.
Okay. We're back.
Keep talking.
All right. We were talking about insidious agendas.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Okay, yeah. No, I agree with you on so many different things and so many different levels. And was that long enough of a break for you, Jim? You good?
Yeah, I got my apple down.
Oh, okay. Well, you can mute if you want me to talk for like 2 minutes. Let me know.
No. I'm back.
Okay, great.
I'm all back.
But I agree with you. Now the question is, what are we really dealing with? And I guess nobody really has an answer to that. I mean, there are some organizations that, quote unquote, they want to call them elites. To me, they're just people with a lot of money who have maybe insidious behavior and agendas that want to play God. But what are we really dealing with here on this planet? And for how long has this been going on? I mean, you have to look at it on that level. For centuries. I mean, when did it start and when does it end?
Well, there's something about, I don't know, it's human nature or what, but it's like, we're not content to let God be God. It's like we have to become God. And and I don't know whether this is like a cosmic impulse that comes from higher consciousness that somehow gets filtered through human ego, and then it gets twisted around into an obsession for power and control, when actually the original impulse was divine. But everything gets filtered through human ego, and that's where the whole thing gets twisted. But if you look at what technology wants to do, it wants to know everything. It wants to be in control of everything. It wants to be omnipotent, totally omnipotent.
Yep.
That in this, okay.
Yep.
We're not going to be content to sit back and let God be God, and we can just watch TV or go for a swim in the ocean or whatever. It's like, no, it's not enough. We have to be in control of everything. We have to know what you're thinking. And it's like, no, that's not good enough. We have to think what you're thinking.
Yep, absolutely.
We have to supply your thoughts. And it's like, well, where does this insane obsession come from?
Right.
But now we have the technologies to make this all happen. I mean, people don't know that there's the Singularity University out in California that is run by NASA and by Google. And the people with the cutting edge technology that are going to literally refashion the human race, that's where this is all being done right now as we speak. Mm-hmm. These are the people who want to put your consciousness inside a computer. These are the people, and these are the people who got the technological smarts to make it happen.
Right. Well, and if you take a look at Project Soulcatcher with Dr. Robert Duncan, I mean, that's a perfect example. Now, anybody who looks at that book, I mean, I can go down a checklist of that book. It's accurate, believe me. And he was one of the designers of the psychotronic program. And they take brain templates, and they use these templates. And, it goes from so many different levels insofar as transferring consciousness. But once again, you make a good point, Jim, because the soul isn't, you don't transfer the soul energy that way. They might think they can, but I'm not subscribing to that at all. But they will take a template, and they will try to create a clone. And, and it's still just such a violation against universal law, if you ask me, on so many different levels. It's not appropriate at all. But you're right. They don't want to be co-creators. They don't want to settle for, just flowing with the universal energies. They want to play God, and they want to use everybody else as a subject.
Right. Well, so you asked me where I think this is going. I don't know. It's like this is, as far as I'm concerned, the way I grew up and my own, values and ethics is like this. We're off the map here. I don't know where this is going to go. And there's a part of me that even starts to wonder. It's like, well, is this what we're meant to evolve into? Are we supposed to evolve into this? I mean, they said that the ETs, the extraterrestrials that the government claims to be in contact with, claim that they have re-engineered the human DNA 65 times. And I said, well, is this the latest upgrade of humans into cyborgs? It's like, I don't know. This is beyond me.
Right. Well, it started with the mind control. We all know that way before World War II. I mean, and from there it got revamped and recalibrated.
Right.
And of course, and now, of course, with the psychotronics and everything else, I mean, the synthetic telepathy is a real deal. And I know they can deploy it. They've deployed it on me, so I'm well aware that it works. And I made it work. So I know that it's, it's one of those things that they can certainly market at some point in the continuum. But you have to ask yourself this: do you really want to be plugged into something else like an artificial intelligence 24/7 and not have any free space or downtime? Because that's what it boils down to. And when you're interface with these type of things, I mean, it takes your life force away. It takes your spiritual design away. It encroaches on what you are and what you were created as to ascend on a higher level through divinity, like you were talking about, opposed to a forced manipulation of control, which to me feels like an iron fist.
Exactly. Well,
I mean, I hate to get dark and dreary, but let's look at the logical side of it. I mean, I'm not going into the gloom and doom aspect, but I do see that whenever you have a technology, there's always going to be the temptation to control, manipulate, and misuse it. And that's a given. We've seen that.
Well, that's why I say this is, on one level, it was intended to be something good, but like I said, it gets filtered through human ego.
Right.
And you can see... if you listen to the dialogue from some of these transhumanists who are major proponents of turning us all into cyborgs, you hear that ego. It's like, well, the human body is suboptimal, and I want to make my body better, and that's fine. But then you can see, well, if I make my body better mechanically, then I'm better than you. And then they start talking about how the people who want to pursue the transhuman agenda, who want to mechanically and technologically improve their physiology with brain implants and whatever nanotechnology, then they're going to be superior. They are going to be superior to the people who don't want to become cyborgs. Mm-hmm. So then you have this social split where they call the people who want to stay human, they call those Terrans. There will probably be farms where the Terrans can live like cattle. But they will be so, they'll be so inferior to we, artificial intelligence cyborgs that we won't even consider them as life forms anymore.
That's sad.
So this whole ethic is just, it's mind-boggling. What we're looking at here, and eventually it's like, well, you have an artificial intelligence that's billions of times smarter than the average human. Would it even regard a human as a life form?
Exactly.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, exactly. Do you remember Gattaca, the movie, Jim?
Gattaca? No,
yes.
I never saw that.
Oh my gosh. You need to see that movie because it talks about that. Yeah, they're genetically enhanced, modified, quote-unquote, humans versus just regular people. Yeah.
Sure.
So, yeah, that hits everything right. I mean, it's just spot on. It's a fantastic film. If you haven't seen it, listeners, I would really recommend you take a good look at it because that's what they're talking about.
I watched the film Surrogates with what's his name? Oh, the Die Hard guy.
I know who you're talking about. The name escapes me.
Oh.
We're bad with names tonight, aren't we?
Both having brain farts tonight. Yeah. But there's this movie called Surrogates where...
I did see that film, by the way. I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Bruce Willis, he's a cop. He's a surrogate cop, right? And where the real Bruce Willis is back in his apartment on a couch with a virtual reality headset on, that his surrogate avatar is out in the real world moving around, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in that film, and the whole city is full of surrogates. So the people that are walking around are actually robots, and their drivers are all home with the headsets on, right? Mm-hmm. So but in that one, that the people who were still, pure humans were relegated into a separate living space, and they were treated like, like third world cast-offs.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see this split dichotomy in the social order.
Yeah, you do.
And I can see that coming. Oh my God, you're talking about DARPA. DARPA wants to replace our army with all robots.
Well, they have the drones already. I mean, everything is remote. Right. Everything is remote controlled.
Okay,
Jim.
well.
I mean, there's a 20-year-old kid somewhere hiding in a room with a remote control, deciding the fate of someone on this planet. I mean, that's bizarro, if you ask me.
Yeah, doesn't that?
That's just crazy.
Doesn't that make you feel warm and fuzzy all over?
You, I mean,
Easel. And I never dreamed it would come to this, but it is coming to this, and it is coming so fast.
Exactly.
This is taking over exponentially, even as we speak. I mean, you go out and look up the sky, so you look at all those chemtrails. Well, is that part of this artificial intelligence agenda that nobody asked me if I wanted to participate in?
Well, and I've mentioned this to you before, it blocks the sunlight from connecting in. And those of us who know light body consciousness and meditation, I mean, we love the solar energies, and it's also a really good cellular activator on a higher level. So You're dealing not only with a healthy environment with the sun, but you're also losing a lot of things that help boot up the DNA is actually getting shut down because of them blocking the sunlight, and they're doing it deliberately. So that's something I'm looking on. I'm looking at it on an esoteric level. So, I mean, there's so much happening here, and, I'm not paranoid. I'm just observing as a sacred witness, but I'll tell you what, it's not right. There's something wrong. There's something way off here. I take logs of information, and I access everything, and I kind of look at it and observe, and I'm thinking, this isn't adding up. None of this data really makes a lot of sense, but the transhumanism thing, we do know that is part of their agenda. Now, whether they really want to pull it off, and maybe they just want to use a portion of their own people. And I guess that's fine, because when push comes to shove, honestly, you don't want to be plugged into their artificial intelligence. I can tell you that point blank. That's a soul taker. It captures your spirit, and it's unhealthy in the long run. No doubt.
Well, that's interesting, because there was another source of Pleiadian channeling that came out back in early 90s by Barbara Marciniak. Mm-hmm. She wrote this book called Bringers of the Dawn, and which really specific, this alleged Pleiadian source that she was talking to said that, we are right at this nexus point where we have the choice to either fully actualize ourselves as humans, as full humans, or we're going to become cyborg slaves. And it's like, this is that nexus point. And I speculate is like, they talk about the little aliens that were at the crash in Roswell, the little cyborg aliens. And I'm wondering if they were actually aliens at all, but that this is the future of what humans become. That what you're looking at is the bioengineered future human. And maybe they're coming back in time. Maybe they were coming back in time because they realized that they were on a dead-end evolutionary spiral. Right. And that this is the point in time where that started. And maybe that there is some effort to kick us into another timeline here.
Well, the one thing I am aware of, it's consciousness will change everything, and just focusing on a higher dimensional space of consciousness can actually assist in shifting the dynamic, and also other timelines here. And also, they're dealing with infringing on people's free will, okay? So once you start doing that, you're violating universal law. So that has to alter. I mean, they can't just sit there and imprison everybody through a frequency fence or through cybernetics and things like that in order to control, manipulate masses, or do whatever they want. And that's one thing people need to be aware of, but they get that awareness through higher consciousness. So if they don't understand higher consciousness, they're not going to realize they're being manipulated. And that's what's happening right now on so many different levels, I think, with a lot of people here on this world, is that they're not in tune with the universal energies, and they're not understanding what's happening with this pattern. But, coming from where I've been, oh boy, I can see it. And I know you can see it.
Sure.
And you look at Philip K. Dick. I mean, he talks right there. I mean, you start looking at his work. My goodness, A Scanner Darkly and all these other things. I mean, I can go on and on about Blade Runner. Of course, that was another one.
Right. I just got a copy of The 13th Floor. Mm-hmm. And that's I had not seen that movie, and I rented it a week or so ago. And this is a movie that came out in the 90s, but it's also about your virtual reality, where you just you plug your mind into a computer, which links you to an avatar body in another life experience. Mm-hmm. And I thought, my God, this is a movie that's 20 years old, and it's spot on. This is exactly what's happening.
Well, look at Avatar too. That movie came out not too long ago.
Oh yeah. It's like this is. Well, like I said, this is we've ended up someplace I never expected to go. Mm-hmm. And
it's a crossroads.
Absolutely.
You have to choose which one. I choose enlightenment, and I choose the path of higher self, oversoul, superconscious, but that's me. And especially after I know what the technology can do and how they misuse it and misrepresent it. So anytime they tell you that, oh, this is good for you, I mean, I'm not buying it. Right. I mean, there's always a dark side to anything. Right. And you have all those gifts. I mean, we have supercomputer minds. We have a beautiful light body we don't even access. Most people on this planet, unless they do a high mystery school initiation type, meditations and things. So, I mean, you're looking at mankind doesn't even have a clue insofar as what they're really capable of. And it's nice if you want to, I like video games now and then. When I was growing up, I used to play video games. I mean, as an adult, I played video games. I was kind of a nerd. So, I mean, I didn't have a problem with that, but, hook me up and plug me in 24/7. I mean, that's kind of not okay. So, right. But I think a lot of these young kids will probably get into this. I think they'll enjoy transhumanism because they don't know any better, unfortunately.
Right. They said that 1 in 4 Americans don't even realize that the Earth revolves around the sun. 1 in 4. It's like, wow. But I bet they know how to text while they're driving. Oh, yeah.
Well, like I said, it's a tool. It's fine if you just want to use it as a tool, but, not to run your life and not to ruin your life.
Right.
That's for sure. And there has to be a balance, Spirituality and technology have to blend on a higher level. They can't just be, one-sided. I mean, spirituality is just so easy. It's just such an easy transition when you're navigating from that level. But
right.
It's amazing when you look at it. We'll see what happens. But I hate to say it like, oh, I'll see what happens. I'm an observer. But what else can you do? I mean, I'm just not knowing what to do right now insofar as changing what they're doing. Seems like it's full speed ahead, and I can send as much light and information as I can. But it's up to mankind.
It's like you say, the people that are at the very forefront, the very powerful, very, very high-placed people in this technological realm are the people who apparently don't have soul contact, but they have tremendous power technologically. Mm-hmm. And it's like this. There's this onslaught out there, and you just you don't quite know how to protect yourself from it.
Right. Well, the other thing too is that how much of that technology is stolen. Is it really theirs by legacy? Is it theirs by celestial heritage, by starseed heritage? I don't believe it is. I believe that they hunted information and they go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just go ahead. I was pretty much finishing, but literally, it's just about taking information that doesn't belong to them and exploiting it and misusing it. In my opinion, what's your take on that?
Well, this is why I question: are we being taken over by an inorganic life form that has no concept whatsoever of spirituality? Mm-hmm. All it does, it sees this as a world to assimilate. It's just like the Borg. It's like, the Borg has there's no moral, there's no moral dilemma with the Borg. They just do what they do because they don't know any better. Mm-hmm. And it's like this. I'm questioning is an inorganic intelligence, an inorganic life form, assimilating our whole entire planet into what they perceive as a viable life form.
Right. Well, they might have created one accidentally. and it might have gotten out of control with many tentacles. I mean, that's another.
Okay. So now you need go back and watch my Archons. Go back and watch my Archons video.
Okay.
Because that's exactly what the Archons are. They are an inorganic life form that cannot even begin to perceive spirituality. They are an aberration, and so what they have to do is assimilate our planet and everybody on it into what they understand as an actual viable life form, because they cannot perceive.
Wow, that's interesting.
And they cannot perceive an organic life form as being a viable life form. Am I making that clear enough?
You are making it clearer.
An inorganic life form doesn't even recognize an organic life form as a life form.
But Jim, riddle me this. Now it's really interesting, because if this inorganic life form doesn't observe us as life forms, maybe it's because we're not emanating a certain frequency that it's able to detect as a life form.
Well,
now is there... Now that's just another look.
We're emanating a frequency that they perceive as food.
Right, because of the lower primordial behavioral of the transmission of mankind, due to their own false belief systems and false matrix. That's what I'm trying to say.
So if you go back and John Lash in his book, Not in His Image, which goes all into the Gnostic cosmology and the creation of the Archons and how this planet got in the mess it's in, he details all of that. And if you read that book, Not in His Image, and then look at the transhuman agenda that's going on here, you'll say, oh my God, it's the Archons. This is the Archon agenda.
Makes a lot of sense. It's all about consciousness any way you look at it, because you take your average Joe, put him on Mars with no enlightenment, no spirituality, and he'll see what he sees based on his belief systems, right? Now you take that up on another octave. I mean, once again, you're dealing with being able to access on frequency level and seeing between the lines with vibration and frequency. In my opinion, I think that's where the key to our evolution lies. And I can't say I judge, I assess and look, and I'm not even sure if these Archons are quote unquote evil. Maybe they're just without spirit. Maybe they're empty or incomplete, perhaps.
They're exactly that. So what they do is invent clever machinations to steal the life form from organic beings, organic life form.
Almost like copycats.
So anyway, what I think at the end of the day, I think this is probably this is not a. I don't know that this is a problem that even humans can fix. That this is a problem that actually began within the fabric of our time-space continuum when our galaxy actually came into being. So ultimately, it's the consciousness of our galaxy. Let's see if you can wrap your head around this one. The consciousness of the galaxy itself has to step in and say, okay, we need to fix this because this is out of control. This was an error, but it's an error that seems to be spreading like a cancer or like a virus. And at some point, we're going to have to make an alteration in the fundamental time-space energy continuum of this system in order to address this. Because, as I understand it, the Archons have been around long before humans got here. And this was an aberration that was created actually at the beginning, at the genesis of our particular solar system. So this is, somebody at a much higher level, I think, needs to step in and make some alterations here. So I don't know if there's going to be a pulse that comes from the central sun of our galaxy that will dispel this or disperse this.
Well, I think that's no, go ahead.
But I've heard talk about the galactic superwave that's supposedly coming, and maybe that would be the pulse that realigns this energy so everything the harmony is restored here.
Right.
But something is just terribly out of balance.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's very disjointed. But another thing you need to look at also, I mean, we have within us, we are our miniature universe. We're all interconnected into the big universe.
Right.
And don't ever forget that, because we're not just, quote unquote, the word human is really just a program. We're literally star beings in a matrix, and that we're very old souls, and some of us here are ancient souls. So we actually, I think, we're underestimated on so many different levels. But once you start accessing your higher self, you blow out those archons of deception if you want to. I mean, and that's another thing, is empowering people through higher consciousness and then linking them up to the full light universe where they can make the changes on a positive level here on Earth. I mean, that's how you change the timeline, is through higher consciousness, in my opinion.
Well, and maybe that will, maybe the Gnostic cosmology says that the central sun of our galaxy is a consciousness, is a conscious entity. And when at the end of the day, we are all made of star stuff. We are all fundamentally the etheric energy of our central galaxy. We are just expressions of that, nothing more. And so somehow the central consciousness of, if that's true, given that that's true, that the central consciousness of our galaxy can express through the consciousness of us poor little biological life forms. And it's like that, and maybe that's ultimately how the galactic tidal wave or whatever, or super wave, will affect us. It's like it will bump us all into a higher level of consciousness, and that this archon deception will just evaporate like snow on a hot day.
Well, that's what DNA activation is about. It's taking you to overtones of your soul and your spiritual level. And also, I do think that this is kind of failing in a weird way, because we know already what the agenda is. It's almost like we have, we're on the high ground because of it. So, I mean, to me, it's like whenever you try to control and manipulate to that extent, it fails. It will in one form or another, in my opinion. So, my take is that, be aware of it. Just know it's there. There is technology that exists like that. But at the same time, focus on the higher levels of what we can do to benefit this world. But I see, I think people need to be a lot more respectful towards each other as life forms, and also animals, and also this world. And I've said this before. I mean, it's, this can be a beautiful planet if you treat it that way, and stop taking all the resources. And they call the oil the blood of the earth for a reason.
Oh, I know. And if you ever get a chance to see that documentary about Ray Kurzweil, you see the world through his eyes, and he sees everything as dead. He says everything is mechanical, it's all dead, and and I'm here to fix it. I'm here to fix it. And it's like, you have to understand, this person does not have, there's a chip missing in this guy. Because he doesn't see the world he doesn't see the beauty of the world. He doesn't see, he says it's all interactive mechanics. He sees no beauty in it at all.
Wow.
So it's like, and it's just something here for me to fix. It's like a clock for me to tinker with. And it's but that, how do you even relate to somebody like that?
Yeah. Well, you take a good look at the kids today. I mean, they're growing up with nothing but technology, Jim. And we grew up with beautiful environments. I mean, I was spoiled as a kid. I mean, not in a bad way, but when you think about it, we were lucky to have the kind of environment we had growing up. Kids don't have that anymore. Not here.
Well, I grew up in kind of a semi-rural setting back in Ohio, and I had beautiful wheat and cornfields right behind my house. And my daddy raised a garden, and we had kitties, and I went out and cut the grass every summer, and I was intimate with every square inch of our yard.
Me too. Yeah.
And it's like, and we roll around in the grass and lay in a blanket and look up at the stars at night, and it's like, and I realize how I am the earth. I am the earth experiencing itself, and taking joy in it, taking pleasure in the earth itself, and watching things grow and watching the flow of the seasons and the clouds and the rain and the storms, and it's like I loved all that, and I was part of that fabric.
Yep.
But
me too.
Do kids today even have a concept of that?
No, not at all. And nowadays, of course, there's a lot that's manufactured. There is weather control, whether people, believe it or not, that happens.
I can see that the weather isn't the same as the weather I grew up with.
Not at all.
It's obvious. It's so obvious.
So obvious, yeah.
And it makes me sad. And it's like I never, Solaris, I never dreamed it would come to this.
I didn't either. And as psychic as I am, I've never seen this thing happening the way it's happening now, ever.
Right.
It's almost like a nightmare on some levels. And maybe some people don't see it that way. Most people go to work, they're distracted, they're trying to just stay busy and pay their bills and this and that, but there's so much more.
Yeah, there's people out there who look up at the sky and these weird chemical clouds that we have now, and they pat themselves on the back. Oh yeah, it's a lot better now.
This planet's not an etch and sketch.
Yeah, we really fixed that stupid weather. Now it's going to do what we want it to do, right?
Yeah, and of course that's a power trip too. You have different countries, struggling for control and manipulation once again. So and it's all about controlling resources, territories, people. It's never good enough. What I've noticed that it's like a beast that's never fed, because it's constantly wanting more, and it's constantly wanting anything and everything. It consumes anything, anyone, people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care. Do you remember that movie, The Nothing? It wasn't The Nothing, but it was from that Never-Ending Story.
Never-Ending Story.
Yeah.
It's nothing. Yeah, it absolutely. Absolutely. It's the nothing.
Yeah, it just wants to consume. Without respect to life, I love the trees and I love nature, and it makes me very sad to see the way the world is going in this direction. And it's like, gosh, we have to stop this. I'm all for transition and good things and change, but this is not right. It just isn't. So, yeah, can go on about that for sure without getting too much in quicksand.
Well, I was listening to Joe Farrell and some of his commentary, and he was talking about how Percy Shelley, his wife Mary Shelley, wrote Frankenstein. Mm-hmm. Well, Joe Farrell says he thinks that it was Percy Shelley that wrote Frankenstein rather than Mary Shelley. But this is very interesting because Percy Shelley knew Adam Weishaupt. In fact, Percy Shelley went to the University of Ingolstadt along with Adam Weishaupt. And of course, Adam Weishaupt created the Illuminati. Well, if you go and I thought that is really interesting. So I went out and I rented the movie Mary Shelley's Frankenstein with Robert De Niro. And the Frankenstein character in that, I'm thinking, is somewhat modeled after Adam Weishaupt. Because Dr. Frankenstein also goes to the University of Ingolstadt. But he's like a militant intellectual. And he thinks, I can do a better job than God did. I can do better than God. So, and the rest of the story. He creates this artificial human, right? And to his horror, he discovers he can't make a human nearly as good as God can. And instead of making something better and something more beautiful, he makes an abomination. And so this abomination turns on him and destroys everything that he loves and that is of value to him, Dr. Frankenstein. So it's a morality tale about the Illuminati. It's a morality tale about Adam Weishaupt, and Percy Shelley himself joined the Illuminati and was so horrified by it, he left it. He quit the Illuminati. And so you see this progression, you see this psychological involvement in the character Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein, in the movie. And at the very end, he says, no, he says, I was wrong. He says, it was wrong of me to try to be God. But he said, I was young, I was arrogant, I was, full of my own intellectual superiority. And he says that it was wrong. I was a failure. I failed. So I think that's what we're seeing now. Is that we see this arrogant, militant intellectualism that is creating this nightmare world, this Frankenstein world. And at the end of the day, it's probably going to bite them in the butt.
I agree with you. That's a very good analogy. It's kind of like, how do you perfect on perfection, too, when you think about it? Even a snowflake is perfect when it falls. I mean, come on. Seriously. I mean, there's so much with the geometrics and frequency and vibration, and also consciousness and soul. And whether you believe you have a soul or not, everybody has a spirit of some form or another. And it's just, that's the beauty of what we are, that loving consciousness. And to poison that makes no sense to me whatsoever. Just doesn't. But yeah, I think they do it because they can.
It's the ultimate narcissistic, arrogant egotism that says, I'm better than God. Well, Dr. Frankenstein at the end of the story says no. He says he said, I can't do better than God, and it was wrong of me to try.
Wonder if God is flattered, huh?
So so if you get a chance to see that's it's quite a morality tale. And it deals with this whole transhuman issue, very, very bluntly.
Right. It seems like it's been going on for a long time. When you look at all these different movies and books, I mean, they've been talking about it. I guess they never really felt comfortable, presenting the data to the masses the way we would probably prefer it. I mean, it's always cloaked in science fiction or something else, but also I'm sure they were under the gun. I mean, if they were to come forward with a lot of information that was controversial at that time, I'm sure they would have probably gotten maybe even killed for some of the information coming out.
Well.
Seems like it anyway. Back then, I mean, nowadays, we while we have voices, we use them, right? While we have freedom, we take advantage of that.
Sure.
But pretty soon, I mean, I hate to think that it's going to be illegal to be alive someday or to breathe the air. Would that be terrible? But, you have to kind of look at things, and are they out of control? I would say on the scale, yeah, absolutely. I think they are.
Well, we got Frankenstein GMOs, and it's like, well, if they can do that, Frankenfoods.
Yeah.
Well, if they can do that to the DNA of plant life, they can do the same thing to human DNA at the end of the day. And they can scan your DNA, and they say, oh, well, you're full of genetically engineered material. I was like, well, you belong to this corporation now because of all the genetic material that's in your own DNA.
They
so
it's like, tell.
Yeah, so if they can do it with a corn seed, they can do it with you too.
Right.
And that's the end.
That's true too. Yeah, and also, but you can change that through frequency, and we do know that. I mean, I've experimented enough with vibration and sound and frequency to know that you can alter things that have been modified, especially genetically modified foods. We can alter that. So that's one of the advantages we have, but still it's a war we shouldn't have to be fighting, quite honestly, in my opinion. This should not be happening.
I know.
I mean, it's one thing to have genetically modified foods. It's another thing to force things down your throat. To basically force it. It's their way or no way. It's just that doesn't work. It doesn't work at all.
Yeah. Well, we're being so programmed, in the media with all this stuff that it's cool. It's cool to have this. Like.
Well, that's what I mean. They glamorize it.
You look at a film like Iron Man. Here's Iron Man. I said, well, his body was he was injured with shrapnel fragments in his heart, right? So his physiology was suboptimal. So to make him optimal, he had to overcompensate for it and turn himself into Iron Man, right? So I don't know if you saw Iron Man 3, he spent a lot of the movie without his Iron Man suit on. And you said, well, he's so weak and vulnerable. And I think, well, that's the whole idea. They want you to feel that you need this technology to be more powerful.
Right.
And so here you see this theme over and over and over again, in especially these comic book driven movies that Hollywood is cranking out now. And you have like another film like Transformers, where the robots are our saviors. Artificial intelligence is our savior.
Right.
So it's like, my God, what are you teaching the kids here? What values are you selling to the public here?
Yeah.
You think a robot that's big and powerful is going to give a damn about these little kids? It's like, no, he's going to say those aren't even life forms. And when the army, when they replace all the soldiers in the army with robots, what are they gonna do with the old human soldiers?
Well, do you remember that movie Universal Soldier? I mean, do you remember that?
I didn't see that one, but I it's like, well,
I mean, it's been in everybody's face for decades now.
Right. No, ordinarily that kind of film doesn't appeal to me, but
well, it's interesting. I like science fiction, and I must say I love science fiction, and I like comics too. I used to have a lot of comic books. I'm a nerd. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But and I love science. That's the sad thing. I mean, I don't want to see it misused. I love it.
Yeah, we were raised to be that way, for God's sake.
Yeah.
So, I remember one of my favorite movie character was Robbie the Robot for Forbidden Planet. Well, Robbie the Robot was superior to all the other humans. So you have a robot character who's superior to the humans, and you see this theme over and over and over. The original Day the Earth Stood Still. You have Gort. Here's a superior robot. Well, the robot is the policeman now, and if you don't do what he says, he'll annihilate you. Right. He'll annihilate your planet. So it's like, you have to give yourself over to artificial intelligence. Well, that's fine, but what if there are... Who's going to protect us in case the artificial intelligence malfunctions?
Yeah, it's like HAL 9000, isn't it?
Right? They never asked that question.
Who created the artificial intelligence? Because it's only going to be as good as its programmer. And if its programmer is just somebody in a underground covert base somewhere, well, there you go.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Absolutely.
Right?
Input, output, yeah. And
so... you see this recurring theme that's over, and you just we just kind of accept it, and
it's entertainment. Yeah, they pass it off as entertainment.
Right, but you're being programmed.
Absolutely.
Right. We need superior artificial intelligence to manage our lives, and what was the Arnold Schwarzenegger series, Terminator?
Oh yeah.
Terminator 3. They're talking about Skynet. Skynet is this artificial Defense Department intelligence that's going to completely take over, our defense systems. Well, guess what? There really is a Skynet. There really is a Skynet. Artificial intelligence that manages our Defense Department, our defense programs. So it's like, at what point does that, like I'm saying, at what point does this inorganic life form say, okay, I'm in charge now, I don't need the biological life forms here anymore? I think we're getting real close to that.
Yeah. Sad to say, I think you're right. I really do. I think we're considered collateral damage or expendable on a lot of different levels. And that's so not true, but that's the way they see it.
Well, it's not like that. It's like, okay, if you're going to go out, you live up in Boulder, you're going to go build a nice new cabin up in the woods. Are you going to be concerned if you bulldoze over an anthill?
Right.
So it's relative. It's like, do you concern yourself over the consciousness of those poor little ants? And this is what we're looking at. We become the ants. We become the insignificant ants. So,
well, I think we have allowed this to happen, and the monster has been fed. That's for sure, whether we realized it or not.
Right. Well, anyway, I think we can start to see the writing on the wall here, and it's like if you don't want this future, then people are going to have to start to speak up and say, okay, technology's fine, but it needs to go in a different direction.
Right, and mankind needs to go to a higher level too.
Right.
So I mean, it all needs to shift on a more positive scale, but it's everything needs to ascend, in my opinion.
Right. Did you see the movie Eagle Eye?
No.
That's another good one, where the Defense Department has created this huge autonomous artificial intelligence that is managing all the surveillance in the country.
That was a James Bond film?
No.
Oh, it wasn't. Okay.
Eagle Eye. No, it's got Sheila Beef in it. Actually, it's a Spielberg movie. Spielberg produced it, but it's all about this defense computer that's in the lower level of the Pentagon, and it just takes over. It says, you gave me these parameters. You program these parameters into my, my hard drive, and it's like, but now the humans are contradicting the parameters that were put into the computer to begin with. So because of this rogue intelligence, this rogue artificial intelligence, decides to eliminate the president and the entire cabinet. Wow. Because they have violated the fundamentals of the Constitution. So I was like, oh my God! So
wow,
that's a spooky movie too. You ought to see that one. Eagle Eye.
Yeah.
Very good movie.
Well, you know what comes to mind also? The cheesy Star Trek, one of the original movies of Star Trek with V'ger.
Right.
Remember that one too? That was another one that was programmed and malfunctioned.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Even Star Trek: The Motion Picture, you have this V'ger, this incredible artificial intelligence that is coming back to planet Earth. That it has evolved. This machine consciousness has evolved to the point where it wants to go back to discover the creator, its creator, who just happen to be biological entities, carbon-based life forms, and V'ger comes back and doesn't even recognize the carbon-based life forms as real life forms. He says, "Oh, these carbon-based life forms infest your spaceship. They infest your planet. We're going to eliminate them." So this is the madness that we've inherited here.
Wow, it's very, very interesting, and you can't really say, I can't look at them with blame on some levels, because I understand where they're coming from on a different level of consciousness, if you will. Unfortunately, I mean, when you see that sort of thing and the behavior associated, you understand where they're coming from.
Right.
I mean, it's not like I'm saying yay or nay, but it's interesting. You understand it a little bit better, the dynamic.
Right.
Yeah, it's just, what a tangled web, huh?
What a tangled web.
I'll tell you what.
Right.
Well, if we all get out alive, we won't, but...
Yeah, I get,
We're getting ready to... Well, we've got about 10 minutes left of the show here, but let's remind everybody where they can get in touch with you and access your videos and also your beautiful artwork.
Well, you can... I really don't have a showcase for my artwork, except that it's interspersed generously throughout my videos. But you can see them on UFOTV YouTube. And it's the Archons, Ancient Aliens, the Archons. It's Ancient Aliens, Nibiru, Nibiru 3, Return of the Gods. And there's also the Aldebaran Mystery Part 2. And they're generously interspersed with my artwork. Or you can go to my website, jimnicholsufo.net.
Lovely. And your paintings are beautiful. Do you actually do custom paintings at all, or no?
Do what?
Do you do custom paintings at all?
Custom paintings? On occasion, I will.
You're very talented. I encourage everybody to check out Jim's website. Beautiful, beautiful artwork. Yeah, and all of that has been by your own vision, or actually pulling in what you perceive as a UFO craft.
All the above. I use all kind of different sources for inspiration in my art. In fact, the UFO art that you'll find on my homepage on my website, jimnicholsufo.net, it's a painting of a UFO hovering over Groom Lake, the dry lake bed there at Area 51. Okay? Well, I got a little story to tell you about that. Last year, a friend asked me to come and visit her up in Utah. So she came down here to Tucson, picked me up, and we drove all the way up to Salt Lake City, where she lived. But we were just outside of Las Vegas. We were just coming up on Las Vegas. And we happened to go past a little shed along the side of the road, and I looked, and somebody had painted that UFO from my website on the side of that barn. So we're flying down the road and says, "Oh my God, there's my painting."
That's wild.
I thought, well, isn't that the highest form of compliment for somebody to like that painting so well, they painted it on the side of their barn?
Yeah, really.
I got such a kick out of that.
No such thing as coincidence, is there?
You never know. You just never know. And I never dreamed that some of my artwork would be so well received.
Oh, it is. It's beautiful. Yeah. How long have you been doing that now?
Oh, well, the UFO art I started back in 1980 when I met Wendell Stevens. But I had been an artist since I decided to be an artist my senior year in high school.
Wow, that's great.
And
yeah, it's quite a gift.
Thank you.
It's also very therapeutic, I'm sure.
It is. It's very restful, and I'm looking for. I have one more video to finish, and I'm actually looking forward to getting back and doing some more artwork. There's just some painting just to relax. And so I'm kind of looking forward to that.
Excellent. And you also have a local group, but that's in your area, right? That you connect with each month.
Yeah, here in Tucson, we have I set up a group called Quantum Horizons, and we meet once a month and talk about these same kind of issues. And I have a pretty good group here in town, and they keep me on my toes. They're
nice.
They're pretty bright. Ask a lot of good questions, like yourself.
Well, thank you. And it's been a pleasure, Jim, to have you on. I must say, I so enjoy talking to you and interviewing you. It's been really great. Really appreciate it. And you're always welcome back, of course. And let me know what you're up to. Hopefully, you won't turn into a cyborg.
Well, yeah, I think
I will.
Computer. I've been working on the computer so long. I'm feeling like, where does Jim stop and the computer start here?
Well, that's another thing, too. They're tapping into 0 point free energy when they interface you with an artificial intelligence, because we are 0 point. I mean, we do establish that through our own consciousness. And then, of course, there's some kind of an interconnection with the feed with artificial intelligence as well. So I can see where it would boot people up energetically, physically, make them maybe a stronger.
Oh, absolutely.
But at the same time, there's always going to be a plus and minus to it. And like I said, if it's used with wisdom and enlightenment, then it can be a positive. But unfortunately, I haven't seen it used like that. So let's see how many minutes we have.
There needs to be more focused intent to expand on that positive energy.
Right. Wisdom comes to mind, and also the Atlanteans, because a lot of what I feel I've been exposed to has definitely paralleled an Atlantean timeline insofar as technology goes, synthetic telepathy, and that type of ability, which I know was used on Atlantis and ancient civilizations, if you will.
Right.
So, we have these gifts. We have all of these abilities, avatar abilities, whatever you want to call them. It's just a matter of accessing them when we are vibrating at the right frequency. But with this technology, boy, it sure does mimic a lot. And then there's a lot of talk of frequency fences and things like that. So I think we have a big road ahead of us. We're kind of like the dinosaurs right now. We're not the youth of America, so I feel ancient.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like a dinosaur more and more, but
not that we're going extinct or anything.
I try to keep up with things and then try not to let my brain get too atrophied here. I just want to add also on the 21st, February 21st, Friday, I will be on Project Camelot Radio at 7 p.m. Pacific Time with Carrie Cassidy, and we're going to be talking about the Aldebaran Mystery, the Nazi secret saucer projects.
Awesome. Glad to see you're doing that interview. Yes, indeed. That's another one that was excellent, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And I'm still very interested in the Giza Death Star. I know we talked about that in the past, but very, very interesting information. But do you think that Great Pyramid, I think we're going to run out of time in a minute here, but let me see how many minutes, is actually deactivated? Or do you think it's being reactivated?
No.
You think it's pretty much...
I don't think it's deactivated. I think that it may be dormant, but I think that there's people who could activate it, if they needed to.
Right. See, I get that also. I don't feel like it's officially deactivated, so to speak.
I think the whole grid on this planet is probably in a higher dimensional context is probably quite active right now.
Mm-hmm.
It may look old and worn down, but it's like, no, I think that's still a viable technology we simply don't understand.
I agree. Yeah, but it is, of course, this planet is ascending on some level. So let's just ride it out, I guess, on a higher level.
And real quick, what's your take on this galactic superwave?
You know,
Do you
I
feel
haven't
like something's coming or not?
I don't intuitively. I feel like we're just navigating to higher levels of consciousness, but I haven't received anything very striking insofar as an energetic signature goes, and that's just me. But I also haven't done too much research on it also. So we are down to probably the last minute here, but I did want to thank you again, Jim, for being on the show. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you, and I wish you well in everything that you do. And
thank you so much.
Yeah, it's just been great. I just love talking to you. Obviously, we can go on and on for hours with our discussions, but and I want to thank my producer tonight, and please join me next week also when my special guest will be Dr. Heather Lynn, and she's doing some incredible work with forbidden archaeology. I think you'll really enjoy her. So tune in next week, and we are just about out of here. So any final comments, Jim?
I'll just keep on keeping on.
That's a good way to say it. Yeah, keep riding those waves, right?
Yep.
Just get your surfboard out and let it roll.
Absolutely.
That's what I say. We've got to
stay warm up there.
Yeah, and you're actually in nice warm weather where you are.
We're having record heat here in Tucson.
Yeah, that sounds really nice, though.
Yeah, the weather else around the country is so bad I'm embarrassed to brag about our weather here.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I know. Well, enjoy your nice warm weather, and everyone have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.